and welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We are so pleased to welcome Kathleen Houston, who is a licensed counselor from Jackson Friends Church, and also you're going to be heading up an upcoming women's conference called Restoration of the Broken. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, Kathleen, first of all, let's get to know you a little bit. You're not originally from these parts, are you?
No, I was a California girl.
So you came here for the weather, obviously.
Well, and there was a tall blonde involved, too.
Okay, that as well. Tell us a little bit about your journey from California to Ohio.
Well, I was previously engaged to someone else, but there was this wonderful man who walked in my office. I was a registered recreational therapist at a nursing home, and he needed to complete some time with the elderly. Mm-hmm. I invited him to go to Disneyland with us. Mm-hmm. So we were transporting 37 people that were in wheelchairs, and there were others that were ambulatory, but he was a wonderful help that day, and I fell in love with him. So I left the beautiful weather of California, my family, a fantastic job, to come in and join him here in Ohio.
And in ministry, Pastor John Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ordained out in California.
Yes.
Brought here.
So cool. Then you got into counseling. How?
Well, there was a time post 20 years ago where our family went through a horrible incident. Mm-hmm. We were seeking a counselor who would minister to us and pray with us and lead us on our spiritual journey of healing. Unfortunately, we did not find that. We found someone who did not encourage our faith, never prayed with us, and I made a proclamation to God that when we got through this rough time, that I would become a counselor. Mm-hmm. I was told by that counselor, "You're a dime a dozen." Mm-hmm. And I said, will not be defined by that.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's not a great way to start a new career, but it was from my heart.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would be a better way, Kathleen, than somebody who's walked in someone's shoes and you know how it feels to be on the other side of that desk and going through situations yourself? I think God's blessed you with an empathy for the people that you work with, to be able to look at someone and sincerely, genuinely say, I've been where you are and now I'm here. And to be able to add, and Jesus has made all the difference, to be able to add that faith component to any counseling situation. Personally, I don't know how you get through anything without him.
Absolutely.
So the fact that that would be removed from any counseling situation doesn't seem like it's whole. It's missing a big chunk of healing. Mm-hmm. My thoughts alone, but I'd like your take on that.
The Holy Spirit leads us into all truth. Mm-hmm. We learn about grace and truth in John chapter 1, and then he goes on to explain grace later on in the book of John. So I took all these ideas and I developed a curriculum for our women's retreat. So I had my beginnings at the Crisis Center. That was a tough group of people to get started with. Yes. You had to be very careful. And there were days that I would go in there following a surgery where I'm like, God, I just don't know if I can do this today. It seemed like those days were the days where we made the most progress.
Wow.
With people whose lives were very much in danger. Mm-hmm.
In our weakness, he's strong, right? We kind of get out of the way entirely.
Get out the way.
Exactly. So you developed a curriculum, pulling together what? Your years of working with other people and different things that they've been through. And
after my training at the Crisis Center, I felt led to be in private practice. Mm-hmm. And so it was so interesting. We were having an outdoor vacation Bible school. And when I returned to school, I went to Malone. I had no idea where I was going to end up. I felt a little silly. I'm going through my second master's program and writing a thesis and like, God, I don't know where this is going to end up, but that's where our faith is.
Yeah.
Faith is when we don't know the end of the story. We can't know it. So we live out at a property where there was an outdoor vacation Bible school, swimming and drama. It was so powerful. So Pastor Dave said from Jackson Friends, hey, what you doing lately? I said, I just passed my licensure to be an LPCC.
Yeah.
And he's like, guess what? We just built a room for a counselor.
Really?
At Jackson Friends. I had no knowledge of this while I was going to school.
Wow.
My youngest was 3. My oldest was 10.
Wow.
I have 4 children. And so like they would say
Perfect time to go to school.
They said, Mom, I think it's time to go study.
Oh, my goodness.
They were telling me I needed to go study.
You all did homework together.
It all came together.
So what I love, and let me make sure I understand this, they were building a new building, and they were adding a counseling room without any idea of who would occupy it.
No idea.
And you were being obedient in getting this degree without any idea of where you were going to practice.
Absolutely.
And you attended this church at the time?
Yes,
How
I did.
hilarious is that?
But if we didn't have that outdoor vacation Bible school, we might not have ever even had that conversation.
Isn't that amazing?
Because Pastor Dave did not know I was going to school for 3 years to get that. They kept adding on classes to be more proficient and more professional. And so I just kept taking those classes till we finished.
So cool. Is that usual for churches to actually offer counseling with a licensed counselor?
No, not necessarily. But Pastor Dave just felt the need to offer that service. So I accept insurances or self-pay, whatever. We work it out.
So tell me a little bit about your practice before we get into what's going to be offered at the Women's Retreat, which is going to be awesome. And mark this down right now, February 23rd through 25th, coming up here. Less than a month. So February 23rd through 25th at Berlin Suites. But before we get into all those details, let's talk about your practice. And do you primarily work with families, women, men, children? Who do you work with?
Well, I'm sort of a jack of all trades because if God leads us into all truth, isn't it the Holy Spirit that leads us? My very first person that called me said, my daughter is just obsessed with her hair, and I just don't know what to do or where to go. Do you have any ideas for me? I said, bring her to me. Let me hear her heart and what is on her mind. No two people do we treat are alike.
Right.
That's why those self-help books from the 1980s, early 90s, step 1, 2, that's okay for some, but others, God leads them into healing. And that goes right into the kintsugi. I don't know if you've ever heard of kintsugi. It's an art form. So this Chinese emperor had a beautiful pot. And, way back when, centuries ago, vessels were very important. They transported water, ashes. They were just very crucial to the existence back then. Someone broke his beautiful urn that was in his family. Well, he sent it out, and it came back with big old iron staples in it. Yeah. Now, this was part of his heritage. He was very upset. So he called together some of his wise people, and they found that in China, they had an art form called kintsugi. It's taking a broken vessel, and we can break so easily with the weight of things that happen to us on our shoulders or happen to others. It can be a medical situation. It can be a betrayal. A lot of things can break us. So this art form took his vessel, and they started from the base, and worked up the sides. And they patiently put together these cracked clay pieces.
Wow.
And they glued them together. Then they would sand them, glue, another resin went on top, another resin went on top. But at the end was gold leaf.
Wow.
All the cracks were gold leafed. So it became an art form that now blessed this Japanese emperor with a pot that when he saw it, he was overcome with tears.
Even more beautiful, probably stronger.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the analogy is not missed here. They started with the base,
Yes.
filling in the cracks, sanding it down. Isn't this
Patient.
what our lives go through?
Grace.
Yes.
Those cracks were lovingly repaired because God knew us from the beginning. God knew us before we were broken. He knew our strengths and our abilities to handle these things. And he develops then our strengths even more.
Wow.
You know, I'm
and then
not...
the gold leaf, when we give our lives over to him, then we are going to be covered and everything is just that much better. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
Yes.
I'm going back to the woman whose daughter was obsessed with her hair. Do we sometimes maybe worry about too much? Because it seems like at that age, we'd want to select our battles carefully. And if the worst thing going on is that your daughter spent a little bit, maybe 5 minutes too long working on her hair, then is that something to worry about and go to a counselor?
That is, okay, what people come to counseling for is often not what we get to.
Oh, so that was the thing on top.
Yes.
But you got to much deeper issues.
Right.
Makes
We
sense.
need to go down to the roots because the roots of who we are the fruits of what we become.
Wow.
So if we feed, what we often see is people want to please others, and then so much of their time then goes into pleasing someone and not loving them. So the difference, Susie, is that when we want to please someone, we have a hidden agenda of wanting to be accepted. But when we love, we put it out there. We put forth that effort without wanting anything in return. And that's what Jesus did for us.
Wow. So then you were able to find out what's that thing at the base that is causing a young woman to be uber concerned about her appearance.
Yes.
And that
We got to that. And
Wow,
now she
wow.
is a grown woman with children and a husband that loves her tremendously. And so it's so fun to see the evolution of this healing in people where they can live a free life. Jesus is the author of freedom. He wants to set us free. He wants us to be joyous every day, no matter what happens to us.
We're so concerned with, I think everybody's heart has been broken about what's going on in Perry Township and Perry schools. Some of it, and they don't seem to have been able to tie a link to why each of these 6 young people took their own lives. But some may be tied to bullying, some may be tied to heartbreak, some, who knows what they were going through. I'd love to know your thoughts about what families can do to open up those lines of communication that help young people tell their parents or somebody they trust what they are going through.
I believe that we have to go back to who made us and for them to recognize that they do have a purpose here on this earth. They can make a difference in the lives of others. They obviously felt like they did not have a purpose. They lost their way. I think we just need to get back to the basics, Susie.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
And, we're only going to be here, but like a wave on the ocean. When people suffer, they feel like it is going to sometimes be forever, even after they go. But that's not so. Jesus, he's waiting up in heaven for us, and he's going to call us home someday.
Yeah, but he's got a job for each of us while we're here.
Yes.
And, yeah.
They lost their significance, I believe. And the family can start, I believe, by making sure that we have dinner together, breakfast together. What's on your mind today? I'd like to know your opinion on this matter. I make some rules as far as breakfast or dinner or lunch together, and that would be don't talk about any agenda or a schedule or what has to be done. Live in that dreamy world while you're consuming the food that fuels you.
Oh, that's good. The family dinner table is very important, and it's been lost in a lot of ways because of busy, busy lives.
Do you know they actually did some studies in another recent study that they're like, how did these kids get to Ivy League schools? Different socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultures. How did they end up there? They traced it back to eating together with their family. Whatever their family looked like.
Didn't matter.
One other person, 10 other people, aunts, cousins, whoever they lived with, sharing the meal together.
Wow. So interesting. We need to take a short break. We're visiting with Kathleen Houston. Going to find out more about restoration of the broken after these words. You're listening to Our Community.